Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else while I try and navigate this whole mental health thing. Now, today, I'm not going to do what I did last week. I kind of went into like a full deck tech on a deck that I've been working on, and that's not really my normal content. So today, there are a couple of things I want to touch on. The first one being the Lorwyn Eclipsed pre-release. There were the reports of like Ninja Turtle cards being slotted in some of the decks. None of that happened during our pre-release, but I did hear about it. Lorwyn was, fun-ish. I don't know. On the whole, it just seemed like there was a lot less interaction than me or my cousin were kind of used to. We ended up going with the first round, I had a green-white Kithkin deck. It was okay, but again, there just wasn't a whole lot of interaction, so I actually ended up switching to a white-blue Merfolk deck that just had more interaction. And my cousin was playing a black-red Blight deck. It was fine. We stumbled on mana a couple of times, and that kind of led to the 2 losses we had. But all in all, we went 2-2, which is still pretty respectable at a pre-release. And yeah, it was fun. Looking at it, I don't think there's a ton of decks that stood out that I want to build. I have had my eye on historical Kithkin in the past, and maybe it's time to do something with that. Not necessarily caring that much about the elementals or the giants. The one spot that might get me is updating goblins from mono red to black red. So we'll see. But yeah, all in all, it's just kind of, it was a fun night. It was a fine time, and now I'm here. That said, the other thing I kind of wanted to touch on is more of a playstyle. So I know they have their bracket system, and I was talking to my cousin the other day, and he talked about how he has what's technically a bracket 2, and it's just kind of like an exhibition deck, and it kind of does a thing, and I got thinking, I don't have one of those, just because of the way I end up deck building. Most of my decks end up sitting at a 3 or a 4. But that got me thinking, I could play some of my 3s at a table with 4s, or at a table with 2s, because instead of changing the way the deck is built, I tend to change how the deck is played. So it's more of the mindset going into it. Because I have a couple of 3s that are insanely efficient and can win games easily if that's what I'm playing towards. But a lot of times I'm just playing to have a good time. I'm not necessarily trying to nuke the board to win. Can I do that? Yes. Can I also hold back a lot and just be like, oh yeah, cool, no, it's fine, and end up playing with people who don't necessarily have my level of play? Yes, I can actually do that pretty well. But it got me thinking, I don't have any actual hey, this is just something I threw together to play it tables with like level 2 decks. And I got thinking, and of course, me being me, I was like, well, I mean, I could do something that's like a mono white artifact deck. And I've been tossing the idea around and pulling some cards for it, and it's just like, yeah. I don't know who I'm going to put at the head of it yet. I could do the Pridwin, which is the vehicle from the Fallout set. That's like a 6-mana vehicle, but when it attacks, it makes 2/4/4 knights. And I could kind of lean into that. Or I could go with like Ash from the Final Fantasy set, because she just, when she enters, you look at the top X cards, and you know, if you find an artifact, you get to put it in your hand. She's also a lot cheaper, so maybe. But all that to say is, I have the decks that are going to be more competitive. Like Vikia Scorching Stalwart. Like, that deck is going to try to win games. Or like my Adelies, the Cinderwind deck. That deck actively tries to win games. But yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for the player outside of the bracket system to say, well, I'm going to try to win this game, or I'm just going to sit down and try and have a good time. But yeah, that said, I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I don't know what I'm going to talk about yet. But I'll figure it out. And welcome back. Now, I was thinking that recently I was able to update my General Tazri deck for the first time in many moons. And this was the single biggest update this deck has basically ever seen. So let's talk about that. Specifically the updates. I'm just going to talk about the commander and what cards were added from the Avatar set, without getting into other things that are still in the deck. Basically, I just cut the worst allies that were in the deck and some of the support cards I had to add in everything that I'm going to talk about here. That said, General Tazri is 4 and a white for a 3/4 human ally. When General Tazri enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an ally, creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. And it has the ability for Wooburg. Ally creatures you control get +X/+X till end of turn, where X is the number of color among those creatures. Not gonna lie, I almost never use her ability to pump the team. It just doesn't ever really come up. But let's start with the most important of the cards that were added, and that is Katara the Fearless. This is Bant for a 3/3 human warrior ally, and it says if a triggered ability of an ally you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. I'm not gonna lie, I've playtested this a couple of times, and it gets out of hand. It used to get out of hand without doubling them, but now that it's doubled, it's just... If I'm playing this, I have to be keeping aware, because you get out 2 things that trigger whenever an ally enters, and then you play Katara. Well, now you're triggering those 4 times between the 2 of them. And a lot of times I'm going to have more than 2. I'm going to have like up to 5. It's going to get crazy. After that, we have Katara, the Water Tribe's hero. It is 2, a white, and 2 blue for a 3/3 human warrior ally with vigilance. When she enters, you create a 1/1 white ally creature token, and then you can waterbend X, creatures you control have base power and toughness X. X on a turn. X can't be 0. Activate only during your turn. So this is just a way to be like, well, I don't have anything else to do. I will just pump all of my mana into waterbending and make my creatures base power toughness X. And that's why she's there. Next up we have Hakoda, Selfless Commander. 3 and a white for a 3/5 human warrior ally with vigilance. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast ally spells from the top of your library, and you can sacrifice Hakoda. Creatures you control get +0, +5 till and indestructible until end of turn. After that, we have Master Piandao, which is 4 and a white for a 4/4 human warrior ally with first strike, and whenever he attacks, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an ally, equipment, or lesson card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So he is quite literally just a second copy of Munda. That's basically it. After that, we have Sokka, Tenacious Tactician, 1, and a Jeskai for 3/3 human warrior ally with menace and prowess. All their allies you control have menace and prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 ally creature token. It's just great utility, basically. After him, we have Sokka, Lateral Strategist, which is 1 and then 2 hybrid Azorius for a 2/4 human warrior ally with vigilance. Whenever Sokka and at least one other creature attacks, draw a card. You'd be surprised how many things we have that just don't draw us cards, so he seemed like a pretty good include for a cheap way. And a 2/4 can attack pretty regularly. After that, we have the Earth King's Lieutenant, which is a green and a white for a 1/1 human soldier ally with trample. When it enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on each other ally you control. And whenever another ally you control enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So this is just like a shifted reprint of like Thalia's Lieutenant, which cares about humans, etc. Next up, we have Suki, Kyoshi Warrior, which is 2 and 2 hybrid Selesnya for a star 4 human warrior ally. Power is equal to the number of creatures you control, and whenever Suki attacks, you create a 1/1 white ally creature token that's tapped and attacking. So just the main reason she's here is the continual making tokens, which we want to do to trigger all of our stuff. Next up, we have Suki, Courageous Rescuer. 1 white for a 2/4 human warrior ally. Other creatures you control get +1/+0. And whenever another permanent you control leaves the battlefield during your turn, you create a 1/1 white ally creature token. This ability triggers only once per turn. So again, she is an anthem and can also pump out additional tokens. Next up, we have the Kyoshi Warriors, which is 3 and white for a 3/3 human warrior ally. When it enters, you make a 1/1 ally. After that, we have the White Lotus Reinforcements. 1, a green and a white for a 2/3 human soldier ally. It has vigilance, and other allies you control get +1/+1, so he is a lord. After that, we have the Sun Warriors, which is probably the most interesting ad here. 2, a red and a white for a 3/5 human warrior ally. And it has Firebending X, where X is the number of creatures you control. And then for 5, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. So the way I see this is if he attacks and we have 5 creatures, that means we can make an ally token and do all of our triggers before damage is done. And for every 5 mana we make, we just pump into him making more ally tokens. Next up, we have the Invasion Reinforcements, which is 1 and a white for a 1/1 human warrior ally. When this creature enters, create a 1/1 ally creature token. The main reason it's in here, though, is it has flash. And so I can just, surprise trigger all of my things. And if I have, the thing out that gives my team double strike or indestructible, now they can block well. It's just, yeah. Next up, we have Avatar Enthusiasts, which is the last creature we're going to talk about. 2 and a white for a 2/2 human peasant ally. And whenever another ally you control enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So, again, a shifted reprint of, I forget the name of the card, but as you can imagine, gets fairly big, fairly quick, and there are other allies in this list. I can think of at least 4 of them that slowly grow with counters, and yeah. Next up, we have the White Lotus Tile, which is 4 mana for an artifact. The artifact enters tapped. You can tap to add X mana of any one color, where X is the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common. So this is an artifact version of the Harbaz Druid. And the fact that it enters tapped isn't really that big, considering half the time when you play Harbaz Druid, you don't have like something giving it haste immediately. After that, I've got an enchantment I want to talk about, which is Invasion Tactics. 4 and a green for an enchantment. When the enchantment enters, creatures you control get +2/+2 till end of turn, which is, fine for an Alpha Strike, but it's really here for the second ability, which is whenever one or more allies you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So again, not a ton of card draw in this deck, but this gives us the utility of, as long as we can slip one creature into each opponent, we're suddenly drawing 3 cards a turn. Next up, we have the United Front, which is X white for a sorcery. Create X 1/1 white ally creature tokens, then put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So, the things that actively collect counters collect another counter, and we trigger all of the things. And finally, we get to the lands. There are 2 lands that I slotted in here from the Avatar set. The first one is Secret Tunnel, which is a land. It's a cave. It says this land can't be blocked. That's specifically for if you're, doing the earthbending thing. We're not, but it taps for colorless. The important bit here is you can pay for and tap it, and 2 target creatures you control that share a creature type can't be blocked this turn. So you just, lots of blockers. I can at least get 2 through. Yeah. And finally, we have the Jasmine Dragon Tea Shop. It's a land. Taps for a colorless. You can add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast ally spell or activate an ability of an ally source. And you can pay 5 and tap it to create a 1/1 white ally creature token. So, much like the other guy, except in this case you have to tap it to make the ally. Again, if we're sitting empty-handed and we just go, I need to trigger my stuff, I'll, essentially paying 6 because you gotta tap it too, but pay 6, make an ally, trigger all the things I need to trigger. Yeah. That's kind of it without getting into the specifics of the deck itself. That's just everything that was added. And again, most of the stuff I pulled out was the 2 mana one that gives them all first strike. Actually, I think both of the ones that give it first strike were pulled out. Yeah, because there's a white one and a red one that does that. Anyway, I don't know everything I pulled out. I do know, there were some I cut that were, on the cusp of being good enough to stay. I know, I kept the indestructible one, the double strike one, the flying, the vigilance. So it's just, yeah, lots and lots of things were cut, but a lot of good stuff was put in. And yeah, I think that's where I'm going to end it for today. So I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulvey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And and I'll see you next time.